with pleasure. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Emilie Romon. I just got married, and I'm using my husband's name for the first time, together with mine. So it makes me very proud. It was 10 days ago. And otherwise, professionally, I lead Ashoka in Switzerland, which is the largest network of social entrepreneurs worldwide. And Sonja is our latest addition in Switzerland. So very pleased to share the stage with her.
Thank you, Emilie. So my name is Sonja Betschart. I'm the co-founder and CEO of WeRobotics. And just to share a little personal story too, so I get to enjoy every morning out in nature to see sunrise. That's my happy moment. And days like today are amazing because the sunrise was just spectacular. Like I said, I'm co-leading and founded WeRobotics. We're a social impact organization that creates a network of local expertise in Africa, South America, Latin America, and Asia for drones and drone data and AI.
So congratulations on getting married 10 days ago. Surprised that you're here at a conference 10 days after a wedding. And sunrise, I must say, I think the only time I see a sunrise is if I have a flight to catch and I'm forced to see a sunrise. I don't think I voluntarily see sunrises. In the summer days, it must be super early.
Well, you know, it's a price to pay. It's beautiful.
What time was the sunrise this morning?
5:35.
Wow. Okay. Do you drink a cup of tea and meditate and look at the sun, or?
No, I'm outside, so I'm either in the middle of the lake or up in the hills somewhere in nature.
I'm inspired, but probably not enough to change my whole life to be able to accommodate that. I'm jealous of people who can do that, but that's amazing. All right, so we're going to be talking about scaling. So there we go. Can scaling bring systems change, and how? And the reason we want to bring the two of you here is most of my work is in the for-profit sector. And if you want to scale and grow something, it's pretty straightforward. The business model is there. You go get your shareholders, your stakeholders, you get your funders, boom, it's done. And it's easy, and you just inspire them with how you're going to use the money, and they'll pump it, especially if they're going to get good return on investment. So they put in the money, they get 10x, everybody's happy. In your world of social entrepreneurship, it's a different model. Could you maybe enlighten us a little bit about how do you scale? How do you grow if you are a social entrepreneur?
Yeah, sure. First thing, you do not scale alone.
Okay.
Because if your objective when you are a social entrepreneur is to achieve as much impact as you can. And by working only alone, there is so much you can do.
Yeah.
If you really want to change things deeply and with a lasting effect, you have to work with others, and you have to go for what we call indirect impact, meaning that you will help others create impact as well as yourself. And I mean, Sonja can share about her own model and maybe give some examples about how it works. But in general, that's the key, and you can see it through models like Wikipedia. You know, he wanted to democratize who has access to information and who can create information, and by making it open source, because the key in indirect impact is the more control you accept to lose, the bigger the impact you are able, or you have the potential to create. So that's
scaling through partnership, collaboration, that is how you grow when it comes to social entrepreneurship. Partnerships,
but also partnering with the right people and activating the right levers of action. And it's about changing norms, cultural norms. It's about changing laws. It's about changing how people act, the relationship between them, so that you can change the inside of the system.
And at WeRobotics, is that the strategy you use to scale? And how do you measure it?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. I think, scale, our mantra for the network that we're co-creating is alone we go fast, together we go far. And that's really kind of the essence. Alone you do nothing. So we scale by bringing together like-minded local experts and by decentralizing the approach, by replicating use cases, like the use cases we saw before from Claudia. This Flying Labs, it's one of the local hubs of the network, who works with drones and drone data on a specific kind of use case, a flood somewhere, or an urban issue with slums, for example. This can be scaled in so many different countries and so many different regions around the world. So you can scale solutions. That's the one thing to scale. And that's what you're trying to do with the network on the one hand. And then by building the network, we're also learning how you can scale in different ways. So our other way of scaling is creating a model and helping the international NGO world in applying that for themselves. So it's actually a two-way scale. One through solutions with the network, and then taking that learning on how to build such a network and scale with other international organizations to possibly adopt and adapt the same model.
I want to come back to the topic of networks and how that plays into scale. I want to remind everybody that you absolutely can ask questions. I've got a few for this conversation, but would love to take yours as well. You mentioned direct and indirect impact. Could you maybe give examples so it's crystal clear what is direct, what is indirect, how it's measured?
Yeah, sure. Well, direct impact is delivering meals to people in need. Indirect impact is changing the conditions that create poverty, and that has as impact that people are malnourished or that they need to get meals from someone else. And you highlight an important point, the question of measurement, because indirect impact, as you can imagine, is much more complicated to measure than direct impact. And we have to be clear about that. It's rather about identifying milestones on the way to the impact you want to achieve. And keeping track of those. Because another characteristic of indirect impact is that it's hard to attribute. It's hard to say that I did this alone, because you activate others, because you activate levers in the system. You cannot claim the impact for yourself. And you have to acknowledge that. So there's a lot of reconsidering ego and so on, for instance.
Thanks for sharing. And I want to dig back into what you said about network effect and network as an accelerator. Can you share a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, it really means in our kind of doing a network, we call it the inclusive network model, is really a bottom-up approach on just decentralizing and hearing from everyone in the network what the solution is. And then by documenting that and sharing, have others inspire through that kind of approach. So not have a top-down approach where someone in Geneva or someone in Lausanne or in New York decides what's going to be done, but that you just have open guidelines where then anyone who actually works on solution decides what the best solution is, documents, and brings that back to the network so others can learn, take from there, not make the same mistakes, because everybody makes a lot of mistakes by applying new technologies to solutions. So, and then sharing that together. But the key is really around sharing and collaboration. That's the number one key.
Ashoka has been around for how long?
40 years.
40 years. And from what I know of Ashoka and Ashoka Fellows, distributed all over the world, incredible group of leaders and pioneers. What does decentralized mean to you when it comes to scaling? And is that the model that Ashoka has followed? Is it a decentralized system? Is it a top-down hierarchy? Like, how did Ashoka become Ashoka?
It's funny, we were talking about it just before entering the room. We started in India and Brazil initially, just to test the model. Testing that there are leaders out there from somewhere between private and public sector that are developing innovative, creative solutions to emerging social and environmental issues. And then, once it proved to be true, we scaled to the wider continents of Asia, Latin America, Africa, and then only in the early mid-2000s came to US, North America, and Europe. And yes, it's our motto internally is everyone a leader. So that's very much a decentralized approach. And we see that for creative organizations, such as ours, because we have to, and also the organizations of our fellows, decentralized leadership is what works best, because you have to be reactive, you have to be agile, and you have to bring in ideas constantly, and yeah, working with what you have.
Does anyone have a question they'd like to ask? Otherwise, I've got a final question. Time flies so fast when you're up on stage here. I'm watching the clock and it's ticking away. Does someone have a question they'd like to ask? Okay, if not, here's my question. Often when we talk about scaling, at least for the kind of the background I come from, it's always about systems, processes, is about what we do, and how do we grow what we do. What I'm hearing and what I've dug up on the two of you is it's yes, what is important, how's important, but also who, and who you bring to the team, and who you enable, and who you empower, and who you enlist. Can you share a little bit about what that looks like? How do you scale people and pioneers?
I think we see it's a lot through bringing the right people together, and it's a lot about passion.
Yeah.
Because it's really not, especially in our sector, and I think a lot of people here can relate to that, we always talk about technology first. And it's not about technology. Technology is not a solution. People create solutions. They use technologies as a tool. So it's really about who we bring together and how we bring these people together. And there the how is someone, here in Lausanne saying how they should be applied, or are actually the people on the ground who face the problems not better placed to say what they would need best out of the technology. So it's about the who first, the how, the bottom-up approach, and then tech is kind of the accessory to that.
Nice, well said.
Yeah, it's the who, but it's also the how. Mm-hmm. It's about processes, and I mean, it's very much connected. Is what power do you give to whom, to do what, and yeah, to rethink how roles and relationships operate. That's very much about it.
Excellent. Well, if you're curious about WeRobotics or Ashoka, please talk to these two lovely ladies. Thank you so much for joining us here at Showcase 2030. So, Emilie and Sonja.